Welcome to the lighter side of the spectrum, the podcast that celebrates the multiple hats we wear and the juggling acts we perform in life. Whether you're parenting kids and teens on the autism spectrum, navigating the ever-evolving healthcare industry, or building a more inclusive and impactful world, this is your space to find connection, inspiration, and growth. Together, we'll share stories, tackle challenges, and explore how innovation and inclusion create better outcomes for everyone. Because no matter the spectrum, there's always a lighter side. Now here's your host, David Coffer.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the lighter side of the spectrum. I'm glad you joined us. Today, we have a really special guest I'm super excited to talk to and introduce you to. Dan Feshbach is the founder and board chair of Multiple, a nonprofit autism innovation platform. And Multiple describes itself as an engine for innovation, which brings together families, entrepreneurs, funders, experts, and community members to solve major challenges in autism. His work is deeply personal. As it says on the Multiple team page, his autism advocacy began when his son, Reed, was diagnosed at age 2. This led Dan to co-found TeachTown, a digital education platform, which now serves more than 170,000 students across 3,000 school districts. And before Multiple, Dan helped build TeachTown out of a gap that he saw as a parent. In an earlier interview, he had described TeachTown as coming from a place of love and also a place of fear because he could not find enough educational speech and language resources for his son, something I think many of us can relate to all too well. Multiple now works to connect autism-focused startups, funders, mentors, and community members. Its accelerator supports early-stage autism innovators through a 12-week program with workshops, mentorship, funding connections, and pitch support. Really amazing stuff. And they also have an Autism-Tech database that includes more than 600 companies across 15 categories, including care navigation, screening and early diagnosis, assisted and augmented communication, education, and daily living supports. It's pretty amazing stuff. Today, we're going to talk about Dan's journey as a father, his work as an autism entrepreneur, the mission behind Multiple, and why the next generation of autism innovation has to be built not for scale, but for dignity, access, communication, real-world family life. Dan, with all that being said, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here. And I'm so curious to have this conversation with you.
Well, we have a lot to talk about, but as I like to do, let's start with the origin story. You're a dad first, a founder second. So can you take us, back to the beginning? What was it like? What was your life like when your son was diagnosed? And, kind of talk about those early years and, what did you feel was missing and just that early part of the journey?
Well, that stretches back now, 33 years.
Okay.
So my son was born in 1993, and we noticed, just like many parents, he had some language, a little bit of pointing. He had some words, and then they seemed to evaporate. And he loved looking at books. He loved visual things, and he had a hell of a hard time sleeping. And so my father-in-law came in one day and said, I think Reed could be autistic. And of course,
even in 93.
Yeah, he was a researcher, a wonderful man.
Okay,
great
wow.
grandfather. And so when he came in, and I pretty much was in that often state in those days in particular, like that can't be the case.
Mm-hmm.
We did the conversation with the pediatrician. Let's wait to see how the language develops. some of those
Yep.
typical kind of conversations, as fathers, we go through. It was a tough time, and then we got the diagnosis, and that was tough. I still think about it today. So,
Yeah.
and then at that time, like the world was a desert when it came to services, when it came to, I mean, you're cycling back 30 years. There was no,
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
I just had this conversation. I mean, 20 years ago, it was a desert as well, even for myself, Dan. So I get it. I mean, I can only imagine, turning the clock back 10 years prior to that.
yeah. And we met so many great people. We had so many great people who cared, in Marin County. It wasn't like there was no autism speech therapy, or there wasn't a lot there, but we pieced a lot together. Um, one of the things about Reed has always been that he's just a very curious guy, always was looking at books, always looking at a lot of different things. But there was no language, and there were a
Hmm.
lot of other challenges that we had with him, as you can imagine.
Sure.
Going to a park. Think about this, and I'm sure you've experienced this perhaps. All right, you want to go to a park, and you get to the park, and that's the wrong one, but he can't
Mm,
say that. All he can do is pretty much cry or scream. So
right.
then you go to the next park, and eventually you find out maybe he doesn't want to go to the park.
Yeah.
But that kind of thing, was a pretty raw time. And then, but we just, we kept kind of trying to move forward with speech therapy and whatnot. And uh, then we got him into a developmental preschool.
Okay.
Um, just quickly cycling forward, because I could go into a lot of detail here.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, it turned out that Reed with an aide in a school that was largely, neurotypical, just wasn't going to work. And
Yeah.
so that led a group of families with a floor-time practitioner who brought us together, and we started a school at that
Oh,
time.
wow.
Yeah, so this
Wow.
was this
That's
was
cool.
yeah, I want to say the school started in 2000, and started with 4 kids. It's called Oak Hill School. It's a really great school, and it now has about 50 kids, and a lot of very happy parents are there.
That's so
Um,
cool.
so it's really that was kind of my first kind of like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. I was running a mortgage data company,
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna
right,
say,
at
so
that
what were you
time.
doing in the, like,
My
what was
my
your
daily life was, I've always been an entrepreneur, David. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I come from not just a family, like it's intergenerational family of entrepreneurs, risk takers, Jewish immigrants who came over, set up businesses, from scratch. So there's a lot
yeah.
of that there, right? And so,
It's literally in your blood. I mean, that's
well,
cool.
yeah, it is. And at the same time, sometimes I take in, like a lot of entrepreneurs might take too much risk. So
Yeah.
the whole thing is like that. But we did ultimately get together. We started Oak Hill Schools. Oak Hill School had no curriculum. I mean, from my point of view, it was making it up as they went, the faculty or the teachers went. Um, and I started to realize this is when, the Mac came out, and they had these stories like living books, which were these gorgeous stories, but they were teaching very strange behaviors that my son still has OCDs about. In other words, he will imitate, like one of the characters, Yali, who
Oh,
likes to eat his food incredibly fast. and so on and so forth. And so I was like, well, how could I build uh, something that was digital? Because he was learning a lot through all these beautiful books that were playing on, the first Mac. And so it was like, well, um, you know, I, I, I'm building and have built a successful mortgage data company. I've sold into bureaucracies called schools. And
Right.
I also have, I'm not the day-to-day ops guy, but I have overseen a company with software engineers, data modelers, you know, essentially like a lot of entrepreneurs, how hard
Yeah.
could this be?
The famous last words, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, it was like 15 years hard.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, it was 15 years hard from when we started with the idea to when it ultimately and actually sold to private equity. And over that time, I learned a crazy number of things, took an innumerable numbers of arrows in the back, uh,
I mean,
kept,
as you do as an entrepreneur, particularly, being first and really kind of only player in this particular space, right? I mean, was there
well, there was
was there
another
much else
parallel.
going on?
Yeah, there were other companies at that time.
Okay.
There was one other that scaled a bit, even got bigger than TeachTown, um, called Rethink. It was Rethink Autism. It's now Rethink Behavioral Health, founded by Matt Greenfield, who's been a real leader in this world.
Okay.
And we have recently met up as a tangent. The only two unicorns in coming out of autism to date. I think there will be many more after that. But in the course of because TeachTown then traded two other times, and
Okay.
Rethink got the all in the world of private equity, uh,
Interesting.
which was fascinating. Uh, and if you cycle now to multiple and how multiple got off the ground, I had an exit, and in that exit, I felt like, hey, you know, you can't, I'm not going to build another, what I call thing, which is another company.
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
to build, I'm going to build, I learned about accelerators and I decided, hey, I want to get into the accelerator business, which is like a career change. Okay.
Yeah,
It has,
right.
it
New
has nothing to,
challenge.
oh
Yeah.
my God. But anyway, I took some of my winnings and convinced some great board members to join me, and we launched multiple, and it was
And when did you, Dan, when did you launch multiple? Because
well,
it's
it was kind of a baby idea. First,
okay.
it was under a little project of mine I called Blue Umbrella, and
Okay.
we and then we for a bunch of reasons, and we worked with companies, but we were just a side project of mine. I no longer had anything to do with the management of TeachTown. We brought in a great CEO, Dave Capellucci, who grew it with his team.
Okay.
And I was, effectively kind of, well, what am I going to do here? And I got very enamored um, with hackathons and things like that. There was a hackathon at the that Autism Speaks did with Microsoft and I think the University of Washington back.
Yeah, I
I
think I
can't
remember
remember
that.
when. Yeah, so I went to that and I got excited about that for a bunch of different reasons. And so I had a, I have, I'm a connector and I'm a person that likes to connect. So, you know, this was not nothing that I've ever built, by the way, was I ever like this hero process, right? I was able, my talent is recruiting wonderful people, committed people into organizations. I'm an enlister. I'm a good, what they call 0 to 1 guy.
But that's a huge talent. I mean, that's critical to have a
So,
successful company.
Yeah, it is. And as you learn more, you can avoid some mistakes that some of the mistakes that I've made um, but when you kind of cycle forward, I was working with a professor at the MIT Media Lab who I believe was a postdoc at that time, Matthew Goodwin. So Matthew and I on a whiteboard charted out this idea of an accelerator. And then, you know, and we, I just thought, okay, I'm good. I want to run with this thing. I
And
pitched it. Yeah.
Dan, can you explain what an accelerator is for
Oh,
again for
sure.
those in the audience again who maybe aren't as well versed in the tech speak or
Yeah,
the
yeah. And
Silicon Valley world?
yeah, well, and well, the simplest thing is think of it, and you kind of mentioned it, think of it as a a course, a boot camp that
A
runs for
boot camp.
12,
Yeah, I like that.
all right, runs for 12 weeks. During that time, outside speakers come in. Our team, the CEO, Kevin O'Rourke, and our COO, Kate Russell, run a tight ship. Everything is scheduled to the nines. There are everyone in the program gets a mentor. Everyone in the program gets office hours with Kate and Kevin. Everyone in the program, and not just one office hour, but regular office hours, they sign up for activities, and essentially we hold them accountable to do the things that they committed to do during the accelerator. So it's run incredibly tight. Uh, they get work on their business idea. A lot of
Yeah.
people come in with business ideas or a go-to-market or um, things that need to be tightened up in order to both attract customers and become investable. So, kind of job one is uh, become investable. But frankly, if you don't have customers, you're not very investable.
Right.
So working on growing the customer base while they're in the accelerator, there's some criteria that we have. Like one of them is some traction. We have a pre-accelerator program called Launchpad for really early stage ideas that typically don't have customers. But in this case, Kate and Kevin run them through a program that includes a lot of experiments, right? They run weekly experiments on marketing to see what
Oh, wow.
yeah, they run. This is not like, when you're in, you're committed, you're all in. And this is sometimes tough for busy founders, but that commitment is so critical to being able to be successful and have our brand behind that organization when they get out. And we've run and we have a demo day, and we also
Mm.
have a pre-demo day where we have a lot of our key supporters are in something we call the Founding 50, which is a group of entrepreneurs, operators, investors who get together and help guide, give us feedback on multiple. And at the same time, we do a pre-demo day where they go through the same routine as they do with our demo day. And so by the time they hit demo and they get feedback, and in our Founding 50 meeting, it's no holds barred. Everybody is, there's a lot of feedback that's given, which I think has helped them polish their pitch. This may be for the first time someone pitching to a group to find investors. And then out of that, I don't have the exact number, but I just picked the number 30 million bucks has flowed into the companies who have gone through our accelerator. And and so
I mean,
we
that's
have a big,
amazing. I mean, even if it was just 5 million, I mean, or whatever it is, I mean, that's significant investment.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
being
you can
facilitated.
see some of the companies in our first cohort, Social Cipher, which is a wonderful uh, gaming platform for neurodivergent youth. Kind of think of them as preteen and early teen.
Okay.
That then got backed by Lego. And
Oh,
Vanessa
wow.
Gill was originally on our board. She didn't have enough time to participate, but she was on the founding board. And then there's Chloe Duckworth, who just announced, I think, a $5 million either seed, I think it's a seed round, who is also an amazing entrepreneur. And, her company is called Valence Vibrations. And Valence uses sound and other capabilities to be able to provide information to someone like on Zoom or in a meeting about kind of what the emotional IQ, what's going on emotionally on those calls. Think of it as emotional captions. And I'm not
Okay.
totally
Interesting.
up to speed with all of the work Chloe's done in the last
But
few years, but she's just a fantastic entrepreneur. You talk about grit, which is needed. You talk about
absolutely.
and you talk about neurodiverse entrepreneurs. Both Chloe and Vanessa are solidly on the spectrum. They work hard,
Wow.
so they're and we have so many. I mean, we've run we've run 6 batches, and out of those 6 batches, think 60 companies plus or minus. All have gone through our accelerator. So the idea that is kind of like was driving this is we need more TeachTowns. And they are out there as well. If you look at another company that is really doing this, like, by the way, so many companies doing good work. But if you you know, there's a VR company called Florio, which basically their slogan is, you practice in virtual reality and then you deploy those skills in real reality, in real time. And
Okay.
yeah, and the CEO is one of the leaders in the space. We're lucky to have him as a mentor, as Vijay Ravardhan, and we're lucky to have him, as a mentor, as a member of the Founding 50. His background is he came into this space. He has a son on the spectrum, and he came into this space with a career at Amazon, at the Washington Post. So
Interesting.
he has incredible. Uh, he brings to the table incredible skills and abilities. There's one other one I'll mention, which is really out of Microsoft, who built the Azure AI stack.
Oh,
And
wow.
right.
Yeah.
And so they went through our accelerator, but they have their AI chops and their passion uh, uh, for this. And it's is also just like we're getting talent into this space. It's a sector now. It's not
I was
just
going to
an
ask you
acronym.
about that. How is that happening, Dan? Do you think? I mean, what's your your theory in terms of, it seems like we're seeing some legitimate traction here, some growth in the space. You talked about the talent. Maybe this is the obvious question, but is it just, are most of these founders, most of these companies, do they have a direct connection to autism typically, one way or the
Oh,
other?
yeah. I mean, and by the way, I didn't mention the company Unique Minds uh,
Okay.
previously. And so, well, let's take a step back and look at the world today, the autism world, by some numbers. And
Yeah.
so, all right, let's just say for a minute, there's lots of numbers thrown around. You
I
can
was
hear
gonna
9
say, yeah,
million, right? You can
this could
hear,
be interesting, but yeah,
yeah, lots of numbers get thrown around. But let's
yeah.
just take, a somewhat conservative number of 6 million people in America are on the spectrum, diagnosed
Okay.
with autism.
Diagnosed. Yep. Right.
Right, diagnosed with autism. Out of that, so with that group, there you've got a mom and a dad, you've got a grandpa, you've got a grandma, you got a sibling or two,
Yeah.
right? And you have an aunt and an uncle. But
Yeah.
even if you just take the family that's engaged part of the family that is passionate about this, and there's, so many siblings are starting companies in this space as well.
That's so cool.
So when you think about that and you multiply that, let's just take 5, right? Times 6 million. So you got 30 million people out there,
Touched. Yeah.
right? Touched, and you've got the loved ones. And I don't care what your support level or needs are, it's not easy. You can get a degree. We all know
As
this.
many do. Right.
You can get a degree
Yeah.
and be a speaker and have Boku skills. And yet at the same time, you can't get a friggin' job. And there's a
Right.
whole sector in the autism space called workforce. And we did a workforce accelerator. I think 10 really good companies there. Um, but when you go back to the dynamic, okay, you go back to the dynamic of the space, it's like this is a challenge that is a lifetime challenge.
Right.
We can like there's brilliance, there's beauty, there's heart, right? And all of everybody who not only is autistic, but the families that their number one job has to be the care for their children, their child. And so out of that, you've got pain. And out of pain comes creativity. And out of that creativity comes companies. And so, I see a blossoming of this. And part of my mission is to encourage anybody with an idea to either look for a company to work in that's there, that needs your talent and is doing great work. Or if you have an idea, and you feel it meets a pain point of yours, it's much easier today. When we started TeachTown, we did it in something called Macromedia Director.
Oh, I remember Macromedia.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you couldn't really test and learn like you can today.
Oh, no. Talk
right?
about a different world. Jeez.
The whole world is changing because it's pretty easy to build an app that solves a solution for you, on Claude or on chat. And so there's a lot of parents already at the kitchen table thinking through, particularly I want to add another theme to this, like what kind of you're kind of a Mr. Mom, okay?
Yeah.
You're involved, right? But
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
not the mama, right? The mom sits at the kitchen table and is, I wouldn't say more concerned, but is the critical glue to the autism economy.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I'm, and I have gotten more and more educated to this, and realize that, the mom test, every company has to pass a mom test. Now, you can sell to school districts. I'm digressing a little bit, but I'll come back.
Okay, yeah.
I'll come back to why the growth. But you can sell into a school district, and then if your child is lucky enough to be in that school district, you'll touch a lot of lives like TeachTown. Like, a lot of the companies that we've had have really defied my point of view, like my point of view is based on my ancient history, is that selling to school districts is a really big challenge in adoption. I've been proven wrong by, a company out there that's doing really creative work with uh, enabling picture symbols to be built super quickly and integrated into AAC devices. Okay,
Oh, okay. Interesting.
right, and it's called NearChat, and it's a amazing. No, the founder's amazing. So every time I talk, it's really inspired by the founders, by their teams, and so on. But when you look at what's possible, the world's changing in such a way. Are big platforms going to be critical? I think they will. But if you aren't getting your needs met and you want to give it a try, you go into something called Lovable, and you can pretty much describe what you're looking for, and it will create you an app. I've done this, uh, for myself. The origins of some work I'm doing for spellers, and particularly for the non-speaking community,
Right.
comes right out of that.
And this is called
Um,
Lovable that
yeah,
people can
the app is
play
called
around.
Lovable. You can
Yeah.
also do it. You can also do it in chat, and you can also do it, with
Claude.
Claude. Yeah, you can
Okay.
do it. So there's just, it's definitely worth trying because it's very empowering to say, oh, I built a restaurant app for my son who loves kind of has loves food, but in a particular way. He's a Disney fanatic, and he's very into Small World, and
Okay.
he started to explore the world through the lenses and food and countries of the world through the lenses of Small World.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, one day I thought, oh, what would be cool if I could make him an app that takes all the restaurants around where we live, or if we're going somewhere like we went on a vacation to Carmel, but
Uh-huh.
just in our local community. So I got them all I scraped the names. I didn't do it. Uh, uh, Claude did. And so I scraped all the names. Then I kept describing what I wanted it to build. So if you pre-think this
Yeah,
stuff,
so it's all,
right?
yeah, thinking it out in advance, and you're kind of created the prompts, obviously, to do the
Right.
scraping and kind of to
But you can
help build
keep
it.
Right, but you can keep changing it. It's almost like you have a dialogue going with Claude, as you well
Sure.
know.
Yeah,
And
right.
so you can build apps that way. And so I see even more possibilities. I mean, what we're
I
looking
agree.
at, and this population that we are so committed to. I'm ADHD. It's pretty obvious, even though I didn't realize it until a good friend pointed it out a few years ago, who's also an entrepreneurial dad. And uh,
Well,
then
that's
we've,
what makes you a great entrepreneur, Dan. I mean, obviously.
well, I like, what I like about myself is I can be incredibly creative. And I am pretty much, even though I can procrastinate, I'm pretty much all in helping this community. I can
Yeah.
procrastinate on a variety of things. But going back to the growth, so the growth is happening both from the bottom up, and then you have like the millions of dollars in research grants that have gone into universities. You know, some of that is actually turning into companies.
Mm.
And so you also have, uh, you have a lot of things happening. You have this like years and years of development of anything, like there are, uh, I'm blocking on the tech, but there's light transmission that can be used with people with autism. Give me a minute, I'll come back to the names of the companies. But there's tech coming out. We are tracking all things autism innovation, but you never get around to tracking all things autism innovation.
Oh my God, there's way
Right? You
too
don't.
much.
No, you
Yeah.
don't. But frankly, we're aggregating, we do in the database track track med tech. We do in the
So things
database.
like you and I had a chance to talk previously, but is it similar to like the brain enhancement therapies in terms of
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like
and I and
photo modulation or some
yeah,
electromagnet?
exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And that
Fascinating stuff. I
so
mean,
Jilica
right.
Light also went through our accelerator, and and that's another example of, we're not pure, you know, tech and apps at all. And so, but what you're finding is just between the long-term investment made by the federal government, the state governments, the big foundations, and what's coming up, what I would say, which is more grassroots or isn't getting government dough or has gotten minimal government dough through SBIRs, Small Business Innovation Research Awards. You're starting to see that fruit come to bear. And then so many smart people, like my job in some ways is to encourage, the next generation of tech leaders. Like you know, I'm going to be 78 in about 3 weeks, right? And
Well,
so, yeah,
early happy birthday to you, Dan. You
thank
don't.
you. So I just see this market as robust. It's a sector. It's a thing. Um, and, there are venture capital uh, firms active in this space. There's Autism Impact Fund that myself and two other co-conspirators helped get off the ground. I'm not involved, but Chris Mail and his team are doing amazing work. Uh, there's difference partners. There's probably 5 or 6 specialty funds, not to mention ones in the disability space, which is also growing. So,
Absolutely.
so you have a sector here. It's a baby compared to, say, cancer. The dollars in federal funding for cancer dwarf autism. If we can simply get triple the federal funding, like think about health tech. What happened to
Oh yeah.
autism? Like the investment in autism by the federal government is pathetic compared to it's just not enough. And Autism Speaks is plays such an important role in getting that funding. At the same time, we know compared to Alzheimer's and cancer, we're behind. And yet these are a lifetime situation. The support's needed one way or the other for some fraction of those 6 million people need
Are
support.
you are you optimistic that we'll see that kind of support anytime in the near future, Dan, and from the federal government?
Oh, there are rumors. You kind of a housing innovator, Denise Resnick, who I just visited last week in Phoenix. There's a heck of a lot of good things going in Phoenix, by the way, and she's a force of nature.
Oh,
And
interesting.
she has a whole campaign that she's been organizing called Vote Autism. So let's focus on people who are actually going to do something for our community,
Love
regardless
that.
of party, right? Regardless of party. Now,
Yeah,
of
right,
course,
right.
you
No,
got to
do
filter.
something.
You got to have some filters. At least I have filters, but
Yeah.
but people do. And if someone is, I'm a Democrat. If somebody were, I'm a progressive Democrat, by the way, which means something. I'm not into the Democratic Party in any respect, but
Yeah.
I'm into progressive candidates. And but I would, with a progressive Republican, I would back that person if they had an autism agenda that was clear. I
Right.
just think we have to come together as a community and be clear that should we get more federal money? Absolutely. The need's there, the dollars are there.
The
Uh,
numbers are there, like you said. I mean, they're
yeah,
clearly there, and the need is there.
yeah. So I think we're at still, momentum is building. Support is building. And to reinforce it, it's across the aisle. I mean, autism is not something that is particularly is not Democratic or Republican.
No,
It's
no,
universal,
not at all. Right.
right? And so, but coming back to I live in the world of possibility. I see possibility. I act on possibility. Parents, it's dads, it's moms, it's siblings, it's frontline
Yeah.
caregivers. And I don't underestimate the frontline caregivers, but when you look at the innovation coming out of families, it's astounding. What families will do, what autistic people like
You get
Vanessa,
creative, like you said, right? I mean, it's kind of what's the old adage? Yeah.
yeah, we just need to
Necessity.
put fuel on that fire, man.
I have a question, kind of a practical question, getting back to multiple in a way, in terms of
Yeah.
like, when you're evaluating companies to work with, how do you evaluate whether, they genuinely are serving autistic families and, the community versus chasing a market opportunity? I think that's one of the things that many of us are sensitive towards, right? There's kind of
Yeah.
that, there's a fine line, right? We know we still live in a capitalistic society, but there are those, there are the market chasers, which I think are annoying is kind of a minor way of putting it, versus those who are like, no, this is how we really want to help. Plus, hey, we want to build something around it.
Well, all right. So that gets to the heart of multiple itself and our team and our board. There's sort of two thought processes. The first one is impact first. Okay, you show me what you're going to do for the family, for the caregiver, for the uh, for the autistic person, what you're going to do for them. I mean, like we do not support revenue maximization companies who serve the ABA industry at all. And God bless them. They can do their work. They're very smart people. There are investors that will invest in that space. That's not a space that at least is in my vocabulary or
Hmm.
multiple
Good.
vocabulary.
Right.
So start with just the commitment of our board. Our board members all have, I think all, maybe but one, no, I think all have, no, all but one have an autistic family member. The one other board member that doesn't has a godson who's on the spectrum, but also just a wonderful friend and guy. So we have an amazing board just there with a filter.
Yeah.
I think when it comes down to it, though, there's all these tensions, right? Are you going to like our accelerator right now? We only have funding size to support a cohort twice a year with a team of two plus me plus the board uh, plus people who step in and volunteer or help. And we want to do more of that volunteer work. So we only handle and it stretches my team just handling two cohorts a year, 20
Oh,
companies.
it sounds like, yeah, a ton of work.
Yeah, it's an amazing amount of work. And so, when it comes to investing and what the process looks like our last two accelerators, we had over 90 companies apply.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was some overlap between the two, but you have a lot happening out there. So you got the 90 companies two times, let's just say some applied twice, so call it 150 companies last year applied for 20 slots. So we look at number one, we look at the founding team and all of them are amazing, but some stand out because they've had more experience, they've taken more knocks, had a prior they've had maybe a prior exit, or they came out of some startup or even a larger company. And so you're seeing, so team, passion of the team.
Yeah.
My dad used to say, "Are you going to bet on the jockey or the horse?" And so, we tend to bet on the jockey. Uh,
Okay.
okay. And then secondly, when you think about it, we're also looking for this accelerator, not our pre-accelerator program called Launchpad, but for this accelerator, we're looking for traction. There has to be enough traction that they can be investable. We work with the companies on their go-to-market, but there has to be traction. Their product, has to be built. Nobody's coming into the accelerator.
With just an idea or whatever.
Right. Well, and we
Or,
would like that, by the way. I think there's a place,
oh, okay.
when you think about the whole world of innovation, like we aspire to start even newer, like ideathons. We don't have the bandwidth today to do an
Yeah.
ideathon, but we will do one, and we will do them, and we will surface more ideas because it's coming from the community, and there's no shortage of creativity there. And then, obviously, we look at the ability of this company to scale. So scale is
Sure.
critical, right? And scale is critical because, you know, there's 6 million families and autistic people out there, I'll call it, 30 to 40 million family members looking for solutions. There's 6 million people who are diagnosed with autism, and only a fraction of those people actually get what they need. Some of it is visibility. So our database will be a source of visibility for companies.
Great. Yeah.
But when you look at it, David, we're still at the beginning here. We have a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
to learn. I mean, multiple has a lot to learn. But when we pick a company, it gets a crazy amount of scrutiny. It gets myself, my team, board members sign up to review, and then we have outside reviewers. So, and all of those get points. And, by the time we're done, there's things that logically come up, and then they're all interviewed once or twice by Kevin and Kate. So,
No, it sounds like a really thorough, process. I won't call it just necessarily a vetting process. It's really a matching process, right?
yeah, it is
Excuse
vetting.
me.
And we are going to stand up a small fund right now, small, I shouldn't even say small. We're standing up a fund to provide the first mile of capital to the companies coming out of this accelerator. So, the idea here is, to date, we haven't had, we're just getting known, and the respect and the recognition that, hey, something special going over on it, that growing nonprofit called Multiple. So, the idea here is we're going to be the go-to place. We are right now for so many startups, and we're going to be the go-to place for early stage innovation in the autism space. Can we get bigger than that? Can we support more? I don't, we'll find out. But, certainly we'd like to be able to participate in our company's growth.
Well, I am fascinated by it. I'm encouraged by it. It's a full circle type of moment for me to be talking to you and, kind of be in the space, because it goes back to my early professional days were in high tech PR. So, I remember you were talking about Macromedia and I was doing PR in those days, Dan, and it's interesting to see this intersection now. One of the things I want to talk about, I want to kind of wrap this up more about you again, because I think that you've obviously done some remarkable things. And one of the things that stuck with me is talk about kind of like, what your North Star is in terms of, who are you thinking about most when you're talking about these companies and how you really want the technology and these things to help? Who is it you're thinking about the most?
Well, of course, my guy, read is a
Yeah.
critical part of that equation. But I have friends, right? I have friends who have kids who can't get jobs. I have friends whose kids um, are going to like a university that has accommodations for autistic students. Um, when I think a lot about my board members, children. I think a lot about the hardworking families, particularly the families who are working at a lower wage, in a lower wage,
Right.
like
Yeah.
the moms that don't
The,
know
the single
this
moms
tech.
or single parents, right? I
Yeah, for
mean,
sure. Single moms who that's really, where I go, I have resources. I've built a career. I wouldn't say like my son's needs are not taken care of. Okay, let's be clear. I won't go down the rabbit hole of what they are, but talk about mental health for people who don't speak. Okay,
right.
that's a disaster right now. But let's go back to the mom who's working in a nail salon, the mom who's you know working at Starbucks, you
Right.
know, right? And
Yeah.
and they don't have time, you know, to barely look, And so, like, my view
I
on
mean,
this,
yeah, they're just trying to keep their head above water,
for
literally.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm incredibly motivated to make sure, I like to use the phrase speed of family. Speed of families. We want to
Mhm.
get to families quick. I'm not as interested. We don't support that 12-year effort that might come out of MIT or might come out of Georgia Tech, which they have. So many good things that have happened in those big universities. Talk to me about what got delivered to that mom today. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
I love that speed of family.
We're not going to sit around and wait. Right. No family should wait. No family should have to wait. And some families don't have the means, aren't at the university center, aren't in the school district, aren't in the, you know, you know, aren't in the in crowd, which is a large crowd right now. There's still a hell of a lot of adoption of technology, people who are using it and it's making a lifetime of difference. But uh, you got 2 million families. How many of them have reach? And that's why this is non-speakers. That's
Yeah,
why
just the
the
non-speakers,
market
right?
is this is a market that has deep, deep needs. And, like if we can catalyze more teach towns, great. If we can catalyze companies at $10 million in revenue that are self-sustaining, that's the first step to be a teach town anyway. Like nobody thought teach town was ever going to sell for in the neighborhood of $1 billion. Okay. When I
I
started
want to
it,
know, Dan, why wasn't there where is TeachTown? Why isn't it an Edmond school district? That's what I want to know.
I bet it might be. I know we
Oh,
called on it years ago, but maybe it's not. But
I
the
don't
funny
think
thing,
so. I mean, if it was, I never heard hide nor hair of it, in
look, the
terms of
management of
stones.
that organization is outstanding. I mean, I have nothing but admiration for the team at TeachTown, and they are tireless. They are committed. I'm not in touch with them, but randomly I'll link to them on on LinkedIn and things like that. But so where are it's just it's a big
Well,
world out there.
it's cool that yeah, it's cool. I was half joking, but seriously, I mean, it sounds it's a great platform from what I saw. I do wish that those getting back to our point, these types of resources need to be made available.
Right.
And and where I live, we're talking about resources. Edmonds, Washington, is a suburb, a Seattle suburb. It's considered the school district's considered, in the top five supposedly in the state. But even with all of that, right, we never saw. Uh, like I said, I never heard of Teach Town until you, Dan. Something like that, and I think that's a real problem. I mean, that's a broader problem that we're talking about in terms of access, knowledge, visibility, all that for this population. I have a couple of things I want to get into our segments that I prepped you for, but I do have a question that is a personal question. So when you think about Reed and the work that you've done, what has Reed taught you that no investor, founder, clinician, or expert could
Oh,
ever
wow.
have taught you?
So many things.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a list. If you
Hmm.
had to narrow it down, what are maybe a couple top
Well,
2 or 3 things?
make no assumptions about anybody. Make no
Yeah.
assumptions about a person's intelligence, their heart, their ability to learn. Like, if we can just get rid of this concept of, that like someone who's not speaking or is not fully speaking or is not super articulate, there's so many ideas that my son has that he's taught me that I was slow to the table. Okay, I was
Okay.
the guy. I have a poem I wrote
Let me
about
get
this,
that.
but
Yeah, sure. We are okay, Stone.
Happy.
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 You gonna say hi to Paul?
Yeah.
Okay.
um, there's so many situations. It's been so hard to make that transition from I'm going to fix my son
Mm,
to I'm going to enable him to grow.
yeah.
You know, lots of great things are happening with him, and he has a great team, and he has a great mother, and he has me, and he has his sister, his brother-in-law. He's surrounded by this wonderful, loving group of people, including, his kind of number one partner, Ali Sandhu, who's like just a great guy. So like like yeah, so he's taught me like also to be much less judgmental. I'm that dad that is like, oh, you didn't get that right. Now we're going to repeat it over and over again till, it's like, why did I do that? So yeah.
Well, I mean, this is a whole nother conversation we can have, Dan, in terms of really kind of the fathering side of it. I mean, I wanted, to talk about what you're doing because I think it's so important. Like I says, it's so, what Multiple's doing, what you're building there is going to have such an impact. But the dad side, like I said, I think it's so interesting because I can only imagine, like I said, I'm an entrepreneur too, not in the same scale as you, but I've started a couple of
I've often
companies.
thought, recently, since we've met, I thought you need to take your body of work, create a catalog, and there's such educational material in it. I'm sure you've thought of that, but if you haven't, I think you have something that all parents want to be able to go to, which is talk to all of those amazing practitioners, researchers, dads who you get on your show. I just think that's a side point.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, it's funny. Again, entrepreneurs, great minds think alike. I mean, actually, Dan, then that was a big part. That was kind of part of the inspiration behind this podcast
Mhm.
was realizing how many great people I've had a chance to meet over the years. Because, like you, I'm a connector, relationship driven. I've just learned a ton, and just kind of realizing on this journey, there's so many great people I've met that I want to share with others, and play that role. So yeah, and we need to have a side conversation to figure out how to do that maybe in other ways to help reach people.
Yeah.
But we're coming against time, and I know we are going to have you back on. We've already talked about this for another reason, and talk more about the dad to dad stuff. So this is definitely part one of a multi-part conversation. But for this week, Dan, we got to do a couple of our segments. We're gonna start off with our autism tip of the week, and as you know, we have our fun jingle that we always include.
Hey parents, gather around, it's time to speak. We're here with your tip of the week. Strategies and wisdom just for you. Autism parents, we know what you go through.
All right, it's time for our autism tip of the week. And Dan, like I said, just knowing you, even though not a lot, but I've gotten to know you a little bit. I'm sure there's There's a few that you have, you've got to whittle it down to a couple or one or two.
Yeah, well, if you're only doing services for with your child and you're not doing tech, any tech solution, whether it's TeachTown, whether it's Florio, whether it's Social Cipher, whether it's Unique Minds, if you're not trying some of these really innovative uh, technologies and applications, you're really missing out. Or if you're just kind of a little afraid to try them, they don't bite. And if you don't
Right.
like them, you don't use them, you move on.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, is there a resource that you could point people to, like in terms of how do you know what's good tech?
Oh my God, you're right into the middle of our a vision that we're building, which is called the Autism-Tech Navigator or multiple tech navigator. So I think one, our website is really a good place because all of the companies that have gone through our accelerator, all their pitches are there. All of, I think, and then the other one, which is, uh, you know, I, I think it's always networking with friends to see if friends are using
Yeah.
tech. It's a trusted network. Somebody that's confident in what they're using, you try what they're doing and keep your ears out. But like, frankly, that's clearinghouse concept, which we talk about, at our board, is a critical thing that we are raising money to fund and make it with a human in the middle so people could actually call and say, hey, not try to do a search of a database and find a list of things you have to diligence yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're on that path.
Great.
Um,
Well, it's
and
much needed.
Christ, I need it. I find
Right. I mean, it's
yeah,
overwhelming, right? Even when you're,
yeah,
when you're in the middle of it.
it is true. And we can share some lists with you
Great. Yeah,
for
we'll include that
for
in the
your
show
viewers
notes.
and things like that.
Perfect. All right, we have another segment I'm going to spring on you. And this one, like I said, I didn't prep you for it, Dan, but I think you'll still come up with some. I want you to think about something that gives you kind of hope and optimism for the future. We're calling it Light on the Spectrum.
Light on the spectrum, a moment, person, or story, bringing something good. It feels hopeful, grounded, not performative. Use it for a person, a moment, a breakthrough, a story.
All right, Dan. So is there one thing that's giving you hope and light this
Well,
week or next week or right now?
it's all about my son. I watch him
Ah,
grow.
love it.
I watch him share how he feels, which is intense because he does feel left out. He does feel like he doesn't have a life like his sister. And he, his words are my daily inspiration. It gives me hope, a lot of
Yeah.
hope. I've seen him go from day one with Elizabeth Vossler at another important person in my life's house named Elizabeth Horn. Seen her go from that to being able to kind of, with a really great practitioner, really be very open and deal with his challenges, all the while talking to himself and still pointing at the letters.
Yeah, it's
I love
remarkable.
it.
And for those, again, for listeners, how long's Reed been spelling? When did he start get introduced to
Well,
S2C?
really,
And
it's been 2.5 years ago,
okay,
for a bunch of reasons, but 2.5 years ago,
pretty recent, pretty
yeah,
recent. So
yeah,
that's yeah,
it's pretty recent for him. And I look forward to everything he does.
oh
And
yeah,
just as a little hint, I've figured out how to create my own reports on his sessions. And that's another conversation. But any parent that's interested in innovation in spelling in tech, like, you can reach out to me. We're looking for early testers who can stand like detail and can stand the pain of learning with us.
Yeah, and you were kind enough to share a little bit of it with me in advance of this. As I mentioned, we had a great meeting conversation ahead of time. I'm excited about it. Can we give a sneak peek in terms of at least timing? Are we hoping what, maybe the next quarter? Can we
Well,
give
we
a
are,
window?
we have our early version of this ready for testing and getting feedback. We're getting feedback from practitioners and parents
Oh,
right
good.
now. Yeah. And so I would imagine, we're going to go slow because everything has to be done so it actually works.
Yeah,
It
it has
doesn't
to be
work
done
just for
right.
me. It works for me, but it needs to work for every parent with a speller, every practitioner.
The practitioners too, right?
Yeah, because it's we need a we need so much there. But I would say that if people are interested in being early in our evaluation and feedback, you can email me at dan@multiplehub.org. Um, there's a wonderful company coming out of your backyard called Unique Minds, and Unique Minds is built on an experience of Coram Thompson, who is a dad with a young girl with her own challenges, cognitive challenges, not on the spectrum, but have similar challenges. And so Coram has partnered up with Elad Ziklik, who the two of them together came out of Microsoft and built the Azure platform and then went on from there to build Oracle's platform. And what I love about this is the fact that there are people coming out of big tech companies with incredible credentials and incredible technology gifts that you don't see that often. And now we're seeing more and more of those kinds of people coming into this wonderful community.
I can't say enough. Again, I am super excited about it. And I can't wait to have you back here. Here's Stone. You can say hi.
Hi, Pa.
No, and Paul's downstairs. That's Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
Are you still groggy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Just waking up from a nap. But Dan, thank you for being here. I mean, talk about someone who's walking the walk, trying to help your own son. You've built TeachTown now with multiple, helping all of these different companies, these technologies, try to, reach people and help them. And like I said, share and being vulnerable about, what's been hard for you. And I'm so looking forward to having you back on here and talking, like I said, a little bit more of the dad to dad talk. I think that'll be interesting. And also sharing, doing the big unveiling, I should say, of the new technology, doing a little demo. I'm hoping that when we get to that point.
I would love to do that. Yeah. Right now we gotta crawl and walk.
Sure.
I think we're in the walk stage. Okay, we're in the walk stage, but everything in due time.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dan, for joining me this week. And looking forward to having you in the future. And for our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. As always, it's so fun and exciting to see this audience continue to grow. Please share this episode with others. Also, feel free to join me on Substack on Coffer Insights. And we have a new website that we've just launched, Communicators for Communication Rights, comforcomrights.org.
Nice.
We'll put that in the show notes as well. So check that out. And until next week, we'll see you on the lighter side of the spectrum.